Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 231, The Plant-Based Solution with Dr. Joel Kahn.
In today's episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talked to Dr. Joel Kahn about, well, a lot. Of course, we introduce you to his new book, The Plant-Based Solution, which covers all subjects plant-based, but we get into some controversial topics too. We look into how hospital food has changed or stagnated since we last spoke to him on episode 91. We also covered the lectin controversy, the carbohydrate debate that just came up this month, and if there is actually benefit to a plant-based keto diet, and if so, how to navigate it. The highlight of the show was that we actually got Dr. Kahn, known for his sense of humor and co-author of the book Vegan Sex, to blush. We discussed some of the more intimate sexual details. The truth is, I'm blushing right now just talking about it. But you know what? People want to know. You know the Plant Trainers Podcast is a family show, but today you're going to want to listen to the second half without little ears around.
Dr. Kahn is a plant-based cardiologist who combines the best of Western and complementary therapies for total healing. Known as America's Healthy Heart Doc, he graduated summa cum laude from the University of Michigan and has been practicing invasive interventional and preventative cardiology since 1990. He's a clinical professor of medicine in cardiology at Wayne State University School of Medicine, an associate professor of medicine at Oakland University Beaumont School of Medicine. In 2013, Dr. Kahn received a certification from the University of South Florida in metabolic cardiology and became the first physician in the world to complete the program. Over the past 25 years, Dr. Kahn has improved the lives and vitality of thousands of patients, taking many of them from chronic health problems to vibrant living. His passion for education and prevention is recognized by his patients and peer doctors alike. Dr. Kahn's medical views are published by the Huffington Post and Mind Body Green, among other media, and he's a frequent flyer on radio, TV, and podcasts. He was voted Sexiest Male Vegan Over 50 by PETA and won the Healthcare Hero Award from Kane's Detroit Business. His fourth book, The Plant-Based Solution, America's Healthy Heart Doc's Plan to Power Your Health, will be available January 1st, 2018. And of course, he's the owner of the Green Space Cafe in Detroit, Michigan. Don't forget that starting January 2nd, 2018, the Plant Trainers Podcast will be released Tuesday mornings. If you haven't already subscribed, do it now.
Hey listeners, it's finally here. The Ultimate Healthy Meal Planning Bundle has arrived. We get so many inquiries about helping with planning. They want to know what to make, when to make it, and how to execute. So we teamed up with the Ultimate Healthy Meal Planning Bundle peeps and gave them our recipe book to include. So if you want to know how to get yourself organized with meal planning without hours of research, looking through Pinterest and Instagram, then we have the solution for you. It's called the Ultimate Healthy Meal Planning Bundle, and here's how it works. It's a complete meal planning solution made up of 10 mini bundles. Each bundle contains digital cookbooks, fresh meal ideas, ready-made plans, and even grocery lists. So no matter how you eat, there's a mini bundle that's perfect for you. It's only available today, December 29th, until midnight on January 5th, 2018 at 11:59 p.m. I just said 2018. That's really crazy to say out loud. Head on over to bit.ly/PTMP bundle. That's bit.ly/PTMPBUNDLE and start making those dominoes fall in the right order now. Get your copy of the Ultimate Healthy Meal Planning Bundle or any of the mini bundles right here at bit.ly/PTMPBUNDLE or click the link in the show notes.
And now for a moment of gratitude.
Every night at dinner, we talk about our successes with our children, and every night before I go to bed, I write out 3 or more successes from the day, and I'm just so grateful that I feel a surplus of those successes, and I never really have to search for something.
I'm always grateful when former students of mine connect or reconnect. And I was contacted this week by a former student who wanted to get some information on living a healthier lifestyle and starting to get into triathlon. So I'm just grateful that there are people out there still remembering me after I teach them and coming back for some more information.
Dr. Joel Kahn, thank you so much for coming back on the Plant Trainers podcast.
Extremely honored, and second time around. I mean, must have done okay the first time. Thank you.
You definitely did okay the first time. We had a great time. Before we get into the great time for today, do you have a moment of gratitude that you'd like to share with us and our listeners?
Yes, and actually, as we record this, I just returned from a funeral of a 60-year-old community acquaintance, former patient, sadly dropped dead of a heart attack. That wasn't the first heart attack at age 60, with 2 young grandchildren just born. And every one of us who's here listening and can take in a breath and let it out needs to enjoy the miracle of life and how fragile that is, and appreciate the fragility, but also the incredible power we have if we will grab on to the most important lesson in our life, which is, preventive lifestyle will take care of a lot, 80, 90%. And don't be lazy. Work hard, love your body, love your family's body, and get it checked. So my moment of gratitude is for my breath in and out, and that I woke up this morning and very, very aware of that.
That's a very important message, and it's a great intro into today's podcast, because we're going to be talking about how busy you are and how hard you've been working, not only for you and your family, but to help others. And you take it a step further than other doctors because you actually have your own restaurant, Green Space Cafe.
Yeah, I say I put my money where your mouth is.
Nice.
It's because sometimes I call it the 401k cafe, because restaurant business is not for those weak of spirit, heart, or dollars. But it is a statement. I hope one day we will recoup our investment if we ever actually make a profit long term. We are running in the black, but there was a lot of dollars in. But it's even more so a strong statement that a medical doctor, in my case, cardiologist, is so acutely aware that food is medicine, and the education and examples you're going to see if you visit a hospital and such are just generally abysmal. So I just had to step up and say, enough's enough. We are in the health business. We're going to include the healthy food business in my repertoire.
So what's been the reaction? What's been the effect on the community having that restaurant there? Are you seeing only vegans coming in, or are other kind of people coming in? How's the restaurant going?
Yeah, we stamp their hand when they come in. V for vegan, VE for vegetarian, and then, UC for uncommitted. No, not actually. No, but my son actually runs the restaurant, but my wife and I are the ambassadors, and we're there a lot and mainly walk around and talk to people. And it's a whole variety of the plant curious, or on a date, the plant dragged in. There's a few people, not many, that their arms are just folded and I don't eat this stuff. I don't expect they'll be around on the planet very long, but I wish them well. But I got to tell you, in the 6 months since the movie What the Health came out, it's just darn easy. I mean, people are coming in that never would have before. They're ready to sample some gourmet food. We do have a large kind of health-oriented conscious cocktail bar that's very popular. So it's gotten easier. And I have a very tiny role in that movie, What the Health, but its impact is huge. I'm very proud that I got dragged in early. I think I was the first physician filmed, and I looked like it because their cameras weren't very high quality at the time. I looked pretty old and gray, and everybody else had better lighting, but I don't care because the movie is a great vehicle. If anybody hasn't seen it, it created a lot of controversy because it does threaten the paleo movement. It threatens the ketogenic animal-based diet movement. It threatens the American Heart Association, American Diabetes Association, and such. But I blogged extensively in reaction to that movie, and I think it's right on.
We talked about the controversy of that movie a while back, and we could link to that in the show notes if anybody's interested in hearing what we had to say.
Perfect.
So earlier you mentioned about food in the hospitals very briefly, and I wanted to know how that's going in Detroit for you and what you're seeing in the local hospitals. Are there any changes since the last time we spoke, or is things just the same?
Amazing changes in Detroit, really amazing, because Harper University Hospital, the the University Hospital attached to Wayne State University School of Medicine, the largest medical school in America, announced that right next to the Wendy's burger joint that they refused to close, they're putting in a Chick-fil-A, so you can get all of the hormone rich, antibiotic rich chicken fried or whatever manner you want it. And it's a step backwards again for an institution I'm on staff at and have been beating up on social media for stupidity round two. And then even my main hospital system, and I hope they're listening, Beaumont Hospital of Royal Oak, Michigan, a world famous institution for cardiovascular treatment, announced they're going to put a Wahlburgers in the shopping center they own connected to the hospital complex. Wahlburgers is Mark Wahlberg and his brothers, a burger joint chain, and it looks better because he's a handsome, hunky Hollywood star. It's as bad a food for your health other than a portobello burger. I'll give them credit for that. But, you know, the triple burger with the cheese, and they're very proud that somehow they use government cheese, which sounds to me like Velveeta. I guess it's what Mark grew up on. I can't believe he eats that food day after day after day. So, yeah, we've actually taken a step back in Detroit. There's always the few good examples out there, including a place called Henry Ford Hospital, West Bloomfield, and a few others. But in general, it's extreme stupidity in the hospital system.
Do you think it's going to change?
Well, I'm going to keep beating away. After a couple of years, you know, I'm on staff there, but I put, you know, really not much at risk because I couldn't give a rip what they think about my constant posting on social media. But I'm going to keep beating away. I do actually occasionally get another doctor on staff text or call me now to say, you know, it's insane what they're doing. What can we do to help? So, you know, it's that Schopenhauer thing. At first they yell at you, then they resist you, and ultimately they join you thing. But we got a long way to go. And it's actually just, it's immoral to feed the food that's known to cause the disease that the hospital is geared to treat. It's truly an immoral act. And the American Medical Association says that there's a ethical and moral issue to food choices in hospitals. But administrators see at the end of Wendy's, the S is a dollar sign, and apparently at the end of Wahlburgers, there's another S.
It's all about the money, right?
It can't be that they actually believe, that it's a health choice. I mean, it's not possible to believe that. So it has to be about, you know, the Mark Wahlberg. And, you know, I loved Ocean's 11 and Entourage. I haven't met the man. I'd probably enjoy meeting the man. But he came to Beaumont Hospital, went to the pediatric department. The head of pediatric hematology oncology holding a big sign, eat at Wahlburgers. You know, her responsibility is, you know, to protect the health of young children with hematologic disorders. There's actually data that kids that eat more hot dogs get more leukemia-type cancers, and yet she's, you know, mindlessly goo-goo-eyed about, you know, a Hollywood star being there. So I just see that as an evil force in our health system.
There's a couple of evil sources out there, and what we wanted to talk about next was your appearance on The Doctors and the interactions that you had talking about lectins. And we just wanted you to give your opinion because there's been a lot of bad press about all of these amazing health foods that we eat on a regular basis, like legumes and things like that. So can you just kind of recap the experience that you had there?
Sure, and then maybe we should talk about even more recently carbohydrates and the recent medical comment. But so for those unaware, because I think most people are unaware, there is a class of chemicals called lectins that are glycoproteins. They're proteins with some carbohydrate attached. They're ubiquitous in nature. They're in animals, they're in plants. There's hundreds. Lectin is like saying chemical. I mean, it's just there's a whole bunch of kinds of chemicals. There's a whole bunch of kinds of lectins with fancy names. Maybe one, I'll just point out, mistletoe, which you think of Christmas time. I don't think it's much of a Hanukkah symbol, is a lectin. And mistletoe is actually used in some advanced centers for cancer therapy. So if you started with that, you say, maybe there's some medical benefit. But there's a theory that predominantly a cardiac surgeon named Stephen Gundry has proposed in the New York Times bestselling book called The Plant Paradox. That came out earlier this year and was endorsed on the back by Dr. Oz and Tony Robbins, motivational speaker, and other really big names. And it proposes that Dr. Gundry himself has come up with the reason American health is declining, and that plants have protective mechanisms inside of them to keep them from being eaten by their enemies, which it would be a bug or a bird or something like that. But us humans eating those plants are also being harmed by this enemy force, and that the lectins are anti-nutrients that cause inflammation. And he says clearly and dramatically that a person that eats even 5 raw red kidney beans will die immediately, which is probably one of the greatest distortions of truth that's out there, because it's not true. It's not a good idea to eat raw beans. It's not a good idea to eat raw kidney beans. They probably will upset your stomach, but you're not going to die. But you can say what the hell you want on podcasts and TV shows and scare the public. So he would back off ultimately and say you just need to pressure cook those legumes to the max, but some people should avoid it. He, in the book, had a couple-week intensive therapy program where you were prohibited from eating almost any fruit or vegetable except avocado and 20 different kinds of cheeses. I mean, it's just so distorted. And the most offensive part, and then I'll finish up with the doctors, is if you actually, I was alerted to this by Dr. Colin Campbell, the famous author of the China study. If you actually go through the book and check the references, you're an MD, you're a well-known MD, and you're saying to people that this is a medical fact from a research study, and then you go to that research study at the back of the book, it's more often wrong than it's right. It's not even the research paper related to the topic. There's a statement about peanut oil in monkeys causing hardening of the arteries, reference number 8. You go to the back of the book for that chapter, reference 8. It's a letter to the editor in a different journal than he was talking about, with no connection to peanut oil or baboons or monkeys of any kind. I mean, it's the worst scholarship I've ever seen. So I was invited on the doctor show because I had written a blog highly critical of the book, and they found me and they put us on and we debated, and he's a smart man, and I have done a lot of TV, but frankly, I was a little bit uptight because I listened to podcast TV. He's been on the Dr. Oz show a zillion times, but he was not on his game. He was very relaxed. And I was on my game, and I wasn't in the mood of being relaxed. It turns out the guys on the doctor's show were wanting him to be exposed a bit for the fraud they thought that he was, and I was happy to help with that. So it was a rather vigorous, whipping, I think well-deserved. And, how many people ultimately saw it and how many people are impacted. People that will be searching the topic will find the clip, and I encourage anybody, you want to look at the doctor's show TV, Joel Kahn, Lectins, you'll see the YouTube clip, which is, I don't like to be rude to people, but some people deserve a little bit of it.
Well, we're going to put a link to that clip in our show notes. And I remember watching that clip, and I said to Shush, man, Dr. Kahn is on today.
You are so on.
You were on top of it. You were proving your points, and he was looking stunned, Dr. Gundry. And I got to say, it was nice to see the doctors on the show actually agreeing with you, because I remember watching them when Dr. Garth Davis was on the show, and they were just pummeling Garth. And, it's tough, that show. They're all over the place, just like Dr. Oz is. And I don't want to knock all these shows, but one day they're feeding you this information, the next day they're feeding you something completely opposite. And to the general public out there, everything gets so confusing.
I agree. And, although I have great, affection, it was my first time on the show. I've been on a couple times since, not quite as controversial topics. I actually respect the docs. I particularly had some time with Drew Erdone, a plastic surgeon. I think he's amazing. Dr. Stork wasn't feeling so well when I was there, so we didn't hang. But the conclusion is always, as they probably should do and have to do, figure out what works for you. I mean, because they can't ultimately give specific medical advice, on a general TV show. And that's pretty much how Travis concludes everything. Yeah, just to bring it forward, there's some consortium of about 30 scientists, big-time academics, like Dr. Walter Willett, who for years was chairman of the Department of Public Health at Harvard. And there's some consortium called the International Carbohydrate Research Council. And if you look at their site, there is some funding at the end. It doesn't look like it's Hostess or Kellogg's, but yet there is a little industry funding. You always got to ask about that. But they just came out with a statement. They met in Italy, but it's, I think, an Australian group that they were representing about carbohydrates, about whole grains. And they indicated that omitting whole grains without the need in your diet, this was in the last 10 days or less, made headlines in some parts of the world, actually increased your risk of having diabetes, and whole grains decrease your risk. And that's completely consistent with decades of medical literature. Brown rice, 100% whole wheat, barley, spelt, all the others. It's completely consistent. Of course, people with celiac disease and a few people with gluten sensitivity need to avoid those foods. And, oh my God, that's engendered, nobody's willing to separate that they weren't talking about white bagels, white donuts, white angel food cake. They were talking about, thick, ugly, old-fashioned, 100% whole wheat bread and 100% whole wheat pasta. These are good foods. We need more fiber in our diet, and we strip them off when we make, rice bread that is both lower in fiber and rich in arsenic, because rice is a problematic food right now in the food industry. Sadly, it's just our crazy, dirty world. It should be a good one. But so anyways, that's the latest kind of witch hunt by usually the paleo team and the ketogenic team. And they're beating up on these academic guys, even though most of these people are just bloggers.
I think that people are looking at those dollar signs like we talked about before, and they're figuring out how can they create a fear-based diet and how can they skew information that's out there to support them so that at the end of the day, they can sell their ebooks, sell their product, sell their way of life. And we really need to go back to that science-based research and try out these different diets if we're not sure, and see where we really thrive, and make sure that the end game is not a higher incidence of cancer or gout or diabetes or anything else that can come from these other diets that are out there.
Again, I don't want to go off topic if you have an agenda, but the last thing I've been beaten on just recently is increasingly the ketogenic diet is growing in popularity. And for those that aren't real familiar, this idea that, very often food gets broken down and glucose is in our bloodstream. Everybody has a blood sugar over 0 right now, and it supplies our liver, our muscle, our brain. But during fasting, as glucose levels may fall because you're not eating or eating minimal, your body can start to produce alternative fuels called ketone bodies. And if you are a type 1 diabetic and you slip into coma, you're going to make those into stress. If you're a health nut and you're trying to hack your health, some people believe using various fasting strategies to produce ketone bodies and ultimately burn some body fat may be a good approach. But it isn't like it's just limping along. So if you go to the medical literature, always a good idea when you're hearing something new. You'll find that 100 years ago it was discovered that in a diet that induces ketosis was very beneficial for children with epilepsy, refractory epilepsy, and sometimes adults. And there was a role for inducing a low-carb, high-fat, high-protein diet for ketosis. And to this day, that's like 95% of the medical articles are in epilepsy. Well, that's not what's being promoted now. It's the same diet, ultimate low-carb, no-carb diets. Again, that just throughout every whole grain in the world. You can, buy various meters or test strips to prove that you're developing ketone bodies, and that there's a health benefit. And there's no doubt, and this is very popular right now in Silicon Valley, very popular on the web, bloggers, low-carb bloggers. There's nothing brand new about it, but it actually seems to be gaining steam. There's a company that's now available that if you're a type 2 diabetic, they're offering coaching for ketogenic diets, developing these animal-based, no-carb, low-carb diets. And so I wrote a blog about it because the big secret out there that none of these websites, bloggers talk about is there's 7 major studies that a long-term diet pattern that's low-carb, high-fat, high-protein actually is associated with a higher death rate. And these studies cumulatively involve probably close to 1 million people. They're always database studies. You're not going to take 300,000 people and put half of them on a high-carb, whole food diet and half on a low-carb, high-fat diet. You're never going to get that kind of cooperation for long enough time to make any purpose. You can do it for 6 weeks and all. So I wrote a blog, The Skeleton in the Closet of the Ketogenic Movement, which is there's a fairly strong suggestion that death rates are higher. And they don't tell anybody that. They don't put those references, major publications on their website. They put the ones they favor. There may be a role actually to induce ketosis once in a while to monitor and maintain your weight, to monitor, maintain, and optimize your health if you use a plant-based strategy. And there's a physician in Toronto, very prominent nutritional researcher, David Jenkins, who's talked about a plant-based Atkins type approach in published papers. And the world's leading expert in longevity and aging is a PhD in LA, now a friend of mine, Walter Longo, Longo. And he's got a 5-day-a-month plant-based diet that induces mild ketosis because it's only 800 calories a day. He's got amazing data for it. It's a diet I use myself 5 days a month, and my patients use it. It's called Prolon, Prolon, if anybody wants to Google it. The website's prolonfmd.com for fasting mimicking diet. But number one, it's made of plants. And number two, it's only 5 days a month. And then you return to a healthy diet of your choice, which a whole food plant-based diet would be a great end of the month. But so the ketogenic diet is probably dangerous. It is effective for weight loss, cholesterol, blood sugar for a short period of time. But what's the price you're paying to your health if you don't use it very short term?
So you post a lot on social media, tons of great articles, and we're going to link to all your social media profiles so people can find them and follow you. But you just mentioned the Prolon, and I was actually going to ask you about that because I wanted to know if it's the same or different or similar to intermittent fasting.
We're taking a pause to let you know this episode of the Plant Trainers podcast is sponsored by Health IQ. Health IQ uses science and data to secure low rates on life insurance for health-conscious people like runners, cyclists, triathletes, strength trainers, vegans, and more.
This is an amazing, innovative system. It offers lower rates to people as they take into account overall lifestyle and not just genetics. Because as we know from so many great episodes, we can control much of our genetics by the daily choices we make. Our environment speaks volumes.
Here's what we suggest. Go through your files and find out how much you're paying for life insurance right now. Then head over to Health IQ and just for fun and giggles, see how much your premium could be with Health IQ.
It'll ask you basic questions like your age, height, weight, and a bit about your health history too. But it also gives you the opportunity to tell them if you're vegan, what type of physical activities you take part in, and how often.
Then you get to take a fun quiz to make sure you're for real. It kind of gets your competitive juices flowing.
And if you do have a competitive side, then you'll for sure want to win by saving up to 33% in your life insurance by submitting actual data from your recent race results, or you could even take screenshots from apps like Strava or Runkeeper.
To see if you qualify, get your free quote today at healthiq.com/planttrainers or mention the promo code planttrainers when you talk to a Health IQ agent. And now back to the show.
Well, yeah, there's a whole variety. So some people will do a day, every Monday they'll do juice or water, maybe for 12 hours, 18 hours, maybe 24 hours. Officially in the world of science, fasting is 30 hours or more without calories, but I'm not telling people to do that. It's just the scientific definition. Some people will do that 2 days a week, whatever your strategy is. That probably meets the definition of intermittent fasting. This periodic fasting mimicking diet means you're doing it for a few days in a row, sustained. And Dr. Longo's program, Prolon, is 5 days in a row. Got to clear your social calendar and find those days because you don't want to be eating out at a wedding, bar mitzvah, or restaurant and ruin the program. Is the hottest rage and the one with the most human science. And then there's one last term, time-restricted feeding. You try and concentrate your meals into 8 hours and go 16 without food. You try and concentrate them in 12 hours and go 12 hours without food. I just was with Dr. Longo on Thursday at a major medical meeting. We lectured together, and he favors right now 12 hours. He's not into stressing the body excessively. So that's maybe 8 a.m., 8 p.m., get your 2 or 3 meals a day in, shut the kitchen, shut the pantry, you're done. You're not eating at 11 o'clock at night or 3 in the morning. And that's time-restricted feeding. So, yeah, those are all, we need strategies. America's getting heavier. obesity, diabetes, cancer. We're spending more money with less results in any country in the world in the United States, and some other Western countries can say the same. So I think fasting is, for many people, a doable strategy, but there is harm to it if you're not cautious.
Very interesting.
Let's change subjects a little bit here. We're going to go into the idea that you are putting out books the way people are putting out babies these days. You have had a lot going on since we spoke to you last, and we wanted to, before we get into your new book that's coming out on January 1st, we wanted to go back and talk about vegan sex for a little bit.
Woohoo! I always thought about it. So the good news about vegan sex. Vegan sex was a parking lot interaction January 2017 with Ellen Jaffe Jones, a equally energetic vegan athlete, author, presenter. I love her to death. She's won many, many athletic awards. She's in her mid-60s, very committed to the health movement. And really over a parking lot, as if we were negotiating a hotel adventure or something. We negotiated, we're going to write a book on vegan sex. She was well into it. I wrote some medical chapters, and we grabbed a recipe author, Beverly Bennett, and boom, there was the book. But turns out we self-published it, and it got a lot of notoriety and chuckles. The cover's rather vulgar and provocative. Thank you, Joel Kahn, for that. But a publisher just picked it up, and it's going to be reformatted into a real book that will run through publishers' tables and publishers' houses. I don't know if they're going to keep the cover or not. I haven't heard. So that book, I'm not going to tell you it's sold 1 million copies. It's a fun book. Proud of it. Most of it was Ellen Jaffe Jones's personal life journey on meat-eating men and their body smell and sexual difficulties until she found her vegan mate of she wanted for her whole life. I stuck to medicine with a bit of humor. And then you're right. So that book was done, but actually I think I'd already finished. That was my 4th book, and I had an actual book deal from a publisher for my 5th book, which I think was largely done. I've written about cardiology for the public and mentioned vegan diets, but I hadn't written a fully vegan book. So the plant-based solution will be out January 1, 2018, published by Sounds True, a rather good publisher in the health world. Health in a global sense, because they do a lot of mind-body publishing like mindfulness meditation. It's a very beautiful cover. It has a 3-week eating plan with dozens and dozens and dozens of healthful, whole food plant-based recipes from the Kahn house, from my restaurant, Green Space Cafe. I'm proud of the book. It's an easy read. It basically distills heart, diabetes, cancer, brain, kidney, autoimmune, and other systems, and where is the evidence for plant-based benefits, as well as tackling the issue of the environment and animal rights. So it's probably the first physician book that's put all those things in one pretty cover. It got John Mackey, founder and CEO of Whole Foods, with the forward, and pretty well-known guy named Dr. Dean Ornish writing another nice cover endorsement, along with Michael Greger, Neil Bernard, and Dan Buettner of Blue Zones and such. Very, very lucky to call these people friends.
So it's a bit of a plant-based encyclopedia, would you say?
Well, I would call Dr. Greger's book, How Not to Die, the Encyclopedia Britannica of that. This entire book, I think, is 200. My book is 280 pages, of which at least 80, I should probably know the answer to that, are recipes. So I think people are going to read this. I think there's a good chance that they'll read it cover to cover and gain a lot of knowledge. In fact, it may be if there's about 150 pages of text and 100 pages of recipes. How do you like that? I didn't want to write a book that, I don't know the statistic, but I know it's under 10% of what people actually read from the books they buy.
Did you talk about sex in that book?
Yes, of course.
Because that's what people want to know about. And I know in our last episode with you in Plant Trainers Podcast, episode 91, we talked about erectile dysfunction. Maybe you could just touch on that, because people want to know about sex and what's going on. So how can a plant-based diet really help with the problem of ED?
Sure. And the plant-based solution, chapter 11, is called 50 Shades of Green. So there is a chapter there about putting plants in your pants, as I like to say. There's 2 important messages, just bullet points. 1, because I am at heart still a cardiologist, and I don't want to go to more funerals for young people like I did this morning. If a man is developing erectile dysfunction, it might be psychological, it might be endocrine, but it may well be that their vascular system is aging and the arteries providing a sexual response are clogging, and therefore arteries of the brain and arteries of the heart may be clogging. Bottom line, go get checked. If you can't get it up, get on the phone and book an appointment with your doctor. Speaking to men, there probably is a similar message for women, but that is a more complex topic. And you've got to know all those numbers: cholesterol, blood sugar, blood pressure, way more than that. Again, if anybody wants to Google Joel Kahn and many things I've written about how not to have a heart attack, the entire list of what to ask for, including a CT scan of your heart arteries, costs about $100 in most communities, is highly recommended, if not mandatory. The second topic is plant-based foods. There are certain foods that specifically enhance sexual responsiveness in men and women. There's a wonderful chemical called NO. As I say, you got to say yes to NO when you want to have sex. NO is nitric oxide, and you can eat your way into better sex by eating leafy greens, beets, arugula, pine nuts. These are foods that produce, when you chew them, a wave of nitric oxide in your bloodstream. It's the reason Dr. Esselstyn tells serious sick heart patients trying to avoid bypass and stents to eat kale 6 times a day. Put it in your oatmeal, which some of my patients actually do, because you want to flood your blood with plant-based precursors that boost your nitric oxide. They'll do it to your heart arteries. They'll do it to your sexual arteries. So you can do it. And also, probably, we need more science. You probably can avoid erectile dysfunction. We know you can reverse erectile dysfunction by changing your diet to a whole food, plant-based, probably low or no added oil diet like Forks Over Knives, where there's a nice demonstration of sexual reversal back to health. My friend Mark Ramirez in Detroit, a very well-known former football player and now health advocate, in a website called chickpeaandbean.com, speaks openly about, at age 45 to 47, the restoration of his sexual power that he had lost eating an American diet, a standard diet, and 3 months on a plant diet completely reversed that. It's really a miracle. I mean, the blue pill is blueberries, not the blue pill.
So I'm sure that everybody is frantically writing their shopping list right now, hoping to get some things going over the week and looking forward to the weekend or hopping right through the week. Let's ask you a non-medical question that all vegans want to know, and it has to do with ingesting your lover's body fluids.
Whoa, Ray, I thought maybe you said that. Well, there is some actual medical data that a vegan might have a better body odor than a meat eater. You're going to sweat out carcass and what's called putrefaction and such a go on your colon. So body odor, there's by reputation, and a little hint, it's in the book, The Vegan Sex, that taste wins. Nobody's done that as a scientific double-blind study, and I can't even bring that up in these politically correct days where it's almost hard to talk about racy stuff anymore because of Matt Lauer ruining the world for us and ruining the world for a lot of women. But yes, it is rumored that taste preference is going to vegans for their body secretions.
And what about cholesterol? Is there cholesterol in there too? There's controversy on that I've read.
No, I'm actually not aware of data that cholesterol is lower, and I don't think anybody's had a heart attack from playing around with body fluids to such an excess that that's their main source of cholesterol intake. But anybody can private message me if they think they've won that award.
I'm sure that they will.
You're putting the juice in the fruits that we're telling people to eat. I never blush. I think you've got me blushing. Good for you.
Yay, I win an award. It's okay. I'm blushing as I'm talking to you too.
Okay, so, I mean, since we're talking about, I can't believe you just asked them that question. Anyway,
people want to know.
I know, it's just funny.
I'm gonna research answer.
So, since we're talking about sex, what can people do today to help improve their sex drive? If you had to name a few things, what would be those top things to do?
Yeah, it's what you take out and what you put in. Classic study, because it's great when there's science rather than just giving you my opinion. Classic study done by a cardiologist and teacher of mine, Robert Vogel, MD, in the 90s. One sausage egg McMuffin from McDonald's assessed what it does to your arteries in healthy volunteers. Within 45 minutes of eating a sausage egg McMuffin, your arteries are acting 10, 20 years older than they were before the sausage egg McMuffin. And these were healthy, mid 20-year-old volunteers. It takes about 7 hours for that to resolve. So if you are going on a date and you want to be, he-man or she-man in the bedroom or the back of your car, the worst thing you'll do is pulling into In-N-Out Burger or McDonald's or Wendy's or Carl's Jr., any of those places. So get that processed junk out that's high in saturated animal-based fats and probably also high in oils, salt, and sugar. What do you put in? You put in the foods we talked about. Take your date out to Sweet Greens. Take your date out to a place where you can have a pizza pie without cheese and a giant pile of arugula on it, or maybe put some walnuts there, which are very good for arteries, or pomegranates are amazing for arteries. So drink a pom or peel a pomegranate. What a sexy thing to do with your date. Peeling a pomegranate and feeding each other the kernels, because that'll fire love and fire your sexual organs up to high intensity.
I've heard through the grapevine, I haven't read the research myself, but I've heard through the grapevine that vegans get higher ratings and get more swipes in the proper direction on dating sites.
It was just in the news this week that it's something like one dating site with 40,000 interactions reported that men, particularly that indicate they're vegan, had 60% higher swipe rates than men that indicated they had bad body odor by eating meat. As a long-time married man, I don't swipe on those sites, so I'll take it on their expert ability. Let me just give a shout-out to watermelon. Watermelon is rich in a chemical called citrulline that also helps you make more nitric oxide. So a big old juicy slice of watermelon, or maybe that national brand of watermelon water, might not be a bad idea as you pick up a bouquet of flowers and such for your date.
I love that you're giving shout outs to watermelon. That's awesome.
And no, seriously, it's powerful stuff.
It's awesome. You're such a funny guy. You're posting incredible articles and writing incredible articles on Medium, for Mind Body Green, for all kinds of sites. Where can people reach out and get the information? Where's the best place for them to catch you?
Yeah, that's kind of you. Pretty much everything ends up at a website, drjoelkahn.com. Doctor is DRJOELKAHN.com. And there's a lot of, I have a YouTube channel by my name. I'm on Twitter pretty much as often as I breathe. That's at DRJKHN, at DRJKHN, and Instagram even. I enjoy it because I'd say 90% of what I post on all those sites are pretty hardcore medical concepts distilled down that I hope everybody can appreciate and read. And 10% of the time I'm being the jokester that I will occasionally be posting, fun stuff, but usually with some sort of message.
And you're posting quite often. Are you doing your own posts?
Yeah, I do handle that. I've never outsourced it. I like, here's another moment of gratitude we start with. I don't touch anything. I don't do anything in the bed in the morning till I take about 5 minutes of gratitude, truly do that. And then I reach for my phone and I will spend about 10 to 15 minutes. I know where to go to kind of what's new in the world of health, medical news, veganism, and usually post what I think is pertinent or helpful to people. But I do it because it also makes me a better physician, more interesting to interview because I know what was just out. There always is new and exciting stuff. Last week was plant-based diets for multiple sclerosis and the benefits from Johns Hopkins University. Not brand new data because Dr. Roy Swink had a diet called the Swink diet that was largely plant-based, low animal fats for the last 50 years. That scientific data has been out there. But, I like to be up to date on that because there's so much chatter from the other side on butter in coffee and all meat diets and low-carb ketogenic. I feel so good. Case studies of one, which aren't really all that medically useful.
Well, I love following your articles and following everything you're posting. It's so educational, informative, and it's really helping everybody out. So thank you for doing that. Continue to do that. And we're going to encourage our listeners to follow you as well. We'll put all the links to your social media and to your website in our show notes, along with a link to your new book that's already out for pre-order and will be available starting January 1st, which is called The Plant-Based Solution, America's Healthy Heart Doc's Plan to Power Your Health.
Well, that sure is nice of you. I appreciate that because truly, authors don't get rich with very rare exception. It's passion. It took a lot of time. And I do believe this is a bite-sized book that almost anybody will walk away saying, that was a good read and I'm going to try 1 or 2 or 10 recipes. And particularly that it's coming right after New Year's. If you order it now, it may be that, I like to call that you should do a pre-tox. If the holidays are coming up and you're probably going to eat poorly, do something special right now to get ready, but you certainly want to do a detox of some kind, which to me is go do a 3-week plant-based diet like PCRM's 21daykickstart.org right after the holidays, or use my 21-day eating plan, or plenty of options out there that are going to fire you back to better health.
We really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, Dr. Kahn.
Have a wonderful 2018. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or any other podcast listening platforms. We appreciate the feedback we receive from you. Every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans, it ensures other people will find us too. Thanks to our patrons. To become a patron, visit www.patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference. Connect and follow us on Instagram and Twitter @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at www.planttrainers.com for awesome plant-based recipes and a list of our services. Email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so we can answer them on our upcoming Facebook Lives. We hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time and have a healthy day.